Hello and welcome. I'm Clarisse Fortuné and you're watching Eye on Africa in the headlines. Sudan is on the brink of famine, and after more than a year of conflict, people struggle to get access to medical facilities. Every child should go to school. That's the Gambia's ambition to make education accessible to all. Zero out-of-school children program will help families in needs. And we'll go to Senegal, where the new government is trying to save the capital's coastline by suspending a wave of development projects. In Sudan, the unprecedented crisis continues to unfold, compelling near 7 million people to flee the over one-year conflict between the Sudanese army and the RSF. The United Nations warns that famine is closing in, and the medical system is now crippled, with most hospitals out of service, leaving the population struggling to get access to health care. Sophie Lamotte tells the story.
This is one of the few hospitals still operating in Sudan, and patients are lining up. Some of them might never get the medicine they need. Dozens of pharmaceutical factories have been hit in the civil war and had to cease operations.
I hope the conflict ends soon and peace will be restored. The shortage of medicine is a serious problem now. I go to the hospital to buy medicine, but often I can't find it. It's exhausting.
Sudan has been witnessing deadly clashes between the Sudanese armed forces led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and Mohamed Daglo's paramilitary RSF Rapid Support Forces since April 2023. In a little over a year, more than 15,000 people have been killed, around 33,000 wounded, and close to 9 million displaced.
We need qualified and well-trained medical staff. A lot of medical workers in Khartoum have fled abroad due to the war. We need them now.
Around 80% of hospitals are no longer operating in the country, and the Ministry of Health estimates the damage to the sector amounts to over 11 billion euros.
Most of the essential medicines for chronic medicines, for example, like renal dialysis, for example, like cancer, for example, are asking to fill this gap.
Severe disruptions in vaccination drives and access to drinking water have also triggered epidemics of cholera, measles, malaria and dengue fever, threatening hundreds of thousands of children across the country.
And around 50,000 Sudanese fled to neighboring Ethiopia. Half of them live in camps in the Amhara region, where they find themselves in the middle of another conflict, the war between the Amhara militia and the federal forces. With the growing insecurity, 1,000 refugees are now asking to be moved to another country. Clotilde Hazard explains.
For the past 10 days now, more than 1,000 Sudanese refugees have been sleeping on the side of a road with no protection and very little means of subsistence. They left the camp where they were sheltered by the United Nations Refugee Agency because of the numerous attacks and thefts perpetrated by civilians living in the area. Many are armed and belong to militias fighting in the civil war that has been raging in the region for the past year. At the end of April, a refugee was seriously shot by a thief in a market. He is still in hospital in Gondar. This incident was a wake-up call for the refugees who decided to leave their camp in protest. The Ethiopian authorities banned journalists from entering the area, but Mohamed Hamed, one of the Sudanese refugees, was able to send me a video while answering my questions.
We give the local authorities and the UNHCR 14 days to sort out our problem, but they did not respond. That is why we left the camp, and we were walking in the road like 4 kilometers eastern from the site of the camp. We have been stopped by the federal police, not allowing us to go forward.
The refugees are therefore stranded in an area that is difficult to access and dangerous. The UNHCR is concerned about the security situation and is working with the Ethiopian government to resolve the problem. More frequent police patrols are supposed to take place to protect these refugees who have already been badly affected by the conflict in Sudan.
10% of children are forced to drop out of school in the Gambia. Poverty or long distances between home and school are some of the reasons. But today, the country wants to reverse this trend by 2025 with the help of UNICEF with the Zero Children Out of Primary School program. More details with Sam Bradpiece from Dakar.
Tens of thousands of Gambian children miss out on education every year. The main barrier is poverty because although schooling is free, many parents can't afford books, transport and uniforms necessary for their children to attend school. The government is trying to turn this around, cooperating with organisations like UNICEF to give direct cash transfers to parents who say that this support is indispensable.
The programme helps me finance the education of my children. Without it, I would have to stop sending them to school.
This programme, which is supported by a range of international partners, is aimed at ensuring 100% school enrolment by 2025.
If we have favourable policies in place, governments put favourable policies, they put enough resources, adequate budgets in place, and they have adequate teachers who are coming in, and then all the parents and community members are supportive of the program, then yes, it's possible to have zero out of school children.
Similar programmes aimed at ensuring universal access to education are currently being deployed in Tanzania, Rwanda and Djibouti.
Justice will have to wait once again for Agnes Wanjiru. She was murdered in 2012, allegedly by a British soldier. The Kenyan court conducted a hearing this Tuesday, but much to the prosecution's dismay, the proceedings were once again adjourned until July. Our correspondent in Nairobi, Olivia Bizo, was at the courthouse.
12 years ago, Agnes Wanjiru's body was found in a septic tank near a hotel in Nanyuki, a city in central Kenya where a British Army training unit is based. But to this day, no one has been charged for her murder. A hearing took place in the court behind me just a few moments ago, but the proceedings have been postponed because an investigation into Agnes Wanjiru's death has not been published yet by the Kenyan government. Her family and her lawyer do not understand why.
It is sad because today we were expecting that all the parties would have submitted their submissions, but it is a shock that only 3 out of 10. Where are the others? Why are they not submitting? That is the question, because enough is enough. It is 12 years. Nothing is being done.
We are thinking that it is fear of facing the truth which is making them delay. Because they are supposed to respond as to our queries, but they haven't. And I think they are shying away from facing justice.
Today's hearing is the latest chapter in a long saga. In 2019, Kenyan authorities opened an investigation, but no results of that investigation have been published yet. And then in 2021, the British newspaper The Sunday Times published a report that alleged that a British soldier had admitted to murdering Agnes Wanjiru to his comrades, but no action was taken. After that report was published, Kenyan authorities reopened the investigation, but 12 years after her murder, Agnes Wanjiru's family is still waiting for justice.
Suicide, a topic that remains taboo across Africa, and yet Ivory Coast has the 3rd highest rate on the continent, especially among the 20-29 years old. This year, the Anumabo Urban Music Festival dedicated its 16th edition to youth mental health. Julia Guggenheim, Mac Camara and Damian Kofi report.
She was barely 20 years old when she tried to do the unthinkable, take her life, overwhelmed by her situation as a young single mother. Michelle Emanuela bears it all.
I was depressed, but I didn't know it was depression. It's at that moment that I started to sink, to be alone in isolation. I went to buy a blade so I could cut my veins to end my life. When I did it, I didn't feel anything. I felt nothing.
Since then, she has been on a journey with one objective: speaking out to help others.
People say depression is a Western disease. It's become a taboo subject in Ivory Coast. And the more it is taboo, the less we talk about it, the more cases of suicide there are.
During the most intense period of her depression, social networks became an important source of hope. So when she heard that at FEMOA, a discussion panel would be devoted to the risk to young people's mental health, she did not hesitate to go there.
There is anxiety, and at worst, there are suicidal thoughts. Lots of young people commit suicide because their life does not reflect what they see on the internet.
You can block people when it's too intense. You can filter comments.
If you feel in danger on the internet, if you feel that you're being harassed, call the hotlines.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. That's what the director of COPAC, a psychological support center, wants to convey to these schoolgirls. To do this, he intends to deconstruct preconceived ideas associated with mental health issues.
Every time I don't feel able to enjoy what I do in daily life, in reality, that is caused by a mental health problem. Mental health is a state of well-being. It's not only madness. Insanity is just an extreme type of mental health problem.
COPAC also trains mental health advocates. Abidjan, Ivory Coast capital, only has around 100 psychologists for its 6 million inhabitants.
All new and ongoing construction works along the coastline of Senegal's capital, Dakar, are now suspended. In recent years, the once beautiful seaboard has been overshadowed by towering concrete structures, and new Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko created a commission to determine which building developments can go ahead, a move lauded by environmental activists Eliman Dao and Sam Bradpiece.
Mbake Sek has had enough. The environmental activist says Dakar's coastline has been ruined by years of huge construction projects.
This was a peaceful, green, natural space, but today these buildings have turned into a construction site.
The government has ordered the suspension of all construction works in this Dakar neighbourhood and elsewhere along the capital's coastline. Activists are happy with the decision, but are calling on the government to go one step further.
We need to destroy the buildings and make them put things back in their rightful place. The law clearly states that no one can develop property on public land along the coast without the authorization from a competent commission.
Property owners insist that they have acted in accordance with the law. This architect, best known for building the African Renaissance monument in Dakar, says there has to be a dialogue between the government and developers.
The government must negotiate with those who have all their paperwork in order, because it was through the administration that they got these papers in the first place. I think that through consultation, architects will be able to do their job properly.
An ad hoc commission created by Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko will soon deliver a report indicating which projects will be allowed to go ahead.
Thank you for watching this edition of Eye on Africa on France 24. Stay tuned for more news.
Catch up with the latest news in World Roundup with Mark Owen. Get all the facts and insights on recent world events.
That's World Roundup with me, Mark Owen, on France 24. Special event.
Hello from the Cannes Film Festival. Some of the big names expected this year include Emma Stone, Kevin Costner, Richard Gere and Demi Moore. Join me every day from Cannes for everything you need to know from the most exciting and glamorous film festival in the world.
Arts 24 in Cannes on France 24 and France24.com.